Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this IBPS PO Mains Descriptive section, live session brought to you by TalentSprint. Namaskaram, Vandanam. And it's interesting to see the comments, the conversations going on in the chat window. So Rani wants to know, Adira, Malayaliano. So it's nice that you guys take time to get to know each other. And it's the right attitude because we're all here to learn together, right? Descriptive section, something that has been introduced this year. A lot of us are not very happy about it, but it's part of our examination stage and we have to go through it, right? But there's nothing for you to be worried or scared about because for essay writing especially, if you have knowledge on current affairs, right, if you update it, because for an essay basically you need content. You need to know what to write, and you will know what to write if you have information or knowledge on a specific topic. And for that, you need to read extensively and be updated with current affairs. That's one thing. For letter writing, it's relatively easier, right? So the 30 minutes that you have for this section, you can smartly distribute it accordingly, right? Take a much more time for essay and probably lesser time for letter writing. So today's session we're going to be focusing on letter writing, and tomorrow we'll look at essay writing. Yeah? I'm guessing it'll be one of each, if I'm not wrong. So ideally you should be prepared to write both, Pooja. Yeah? So in today's session, what we'll cover is, we'll obviously look at the format. I mean, letter writing predominantly is divided into two categories, right? You have formal writing, you have informal writing. So we will look at the format for both these, one. Then we'll probably look at a sample letter for a formal letter and an informal letter. And we're going to be focusing on, you know, the language used. What is the difference in terms of formal and informal, right? What is the language used? What is the tone used? And things like that, right? And then probably I can share some sample topics which you can go back and practice on. Yeah? So super. Let's get started. Venu, descriptive paper will be in such a way that what can I say? Gets your senses to, rekindles your senses to think out of the box. Especially in essay writing, you can bring out your personality, right? Because usually in conclusion, it's always about what Shravani's opinion is about on that topic, or what Venu's opinion is on that topic, and you can always leave a punchline and something that you want the reader to take back from that essay. Like, you know, you're creating an impact with what you've written down. Yeah, so let's get started. So let me share the screen. There's the screen, and let's get started. Yeah, so formal letter format, let's quickly look at it. So you obviously have the from address, where you will input your name and address, right? And don't worry about, you know, the punctuation that comes towards the end. You know, normally the first line, second line, third line, if you notice, there'll be a comma and there'll be a full stop. It's a pretty outdated format, so you don't have to worry about the punctuations in the address section. And then you have the date. Also, what I'd like you to focus or make a note is, when you're writing the date, make sure the month is written not in numbers, but you write it as MAY, or what is this month? November or December, write it as it is, right? Instead of 11 or 12. We will look at that format as well when we look at the sample letter. And then you have the to address, whom are you sending the letter to? And then, so you input the name and address of the receiver. And then you have the salutation, right? Greeting. Hi, hello, if it's informal, and if it's formal, it's respected sir, madam, dear sir, etc. What I'd also like to make a note here is, if you don't know it's good for you to know the name of the person whom you're writing the letter to. So you say, dear Mr. and the last name. That'll make more sense. But in case you don't know, then just stick to sir or madam, which is also fine. Yeah, I'll take questions if we have time towards the end, but let's continue. And then you have the subject line, right? Now, subject line, I would say again, is optional. If you want the reader to immediately know what the intent or the purpose of this letter is, you can mention the subject line. Even if you don't, it's fine, right? It's optional. If you want to, you can put that down. If you don't want to, it's okay. And then you have the content, which is the body of the letter, right? And then you sign off, complimentary close, and then you can sign off. This is probably for we're looking at a formal letter, right? So yours sincerely, yours faithfully, yours truly, anything is fine. And then you have the signature and your name in caps, right beneath or below the signature. Okay, so you have yours sincerely, leave about 4 or 5 line spaces, and then you write your names in caps. So that gap between yours sincerely and your name, which is in capital letters in the bracket, there is where you sign. Okay, that's where I've written signature. Yeah, so this is the format, but let's quickly look at a sample of this. But before that, maybe we can also take a look at the, we're going to look at the sample of this formal letter. So the letter is you're writing a job offer acceptance letter for the post of assistant manager. So you got selected for this post, and you're writing in to say, hey, you know what, thank you so much, I'm accepting this post, blah, blah, blah. So let's look at the format. So like we said, from address, your name, your address, right? You leave your phone number attached if need be, otherwise also it's fine. And then you have the date. Did you look at the date? It doesn't say 25th 05, it says 25th May 2017. You start with the date, then the month, and then the year. Okay? And then you have the to address, who you're writing this to, the HR manager, PQR enterprise, and then you have the salutation or greeting. Now, sometimes people can also write the subject after the receiver's address, that is between the receiver's address and the salutation. That is also fine. So you don't have to worry about, should I place the subject only after the greeting? You can also place it before the greeting, after the receiver's address. That is also fine. Okay? So then, you always, the introduction, the first line is, you're letting this person know the intent or the purpose for which you're writing the letter. So this is ABC. Usually stick to, don't write your name, right? Stick to standard names like ABC, XYZ, which is perfect. Unless the topic itself is very specifically mentioning some person's name, then you input there his or her name, right? Otherwise, just stick to ABC, XYZ. So this is ABC from Dilshuk Nagar. I'm pleased to accept the position of assistant manager with PQR Enterprise. So be very clear in your intent of why you're writing this letter, right? The subject already gives the idea. And then I would like to take a moment to thank the interview panel for providing a conducive environment. Furthermore, so I want you to pay attention to language that is used here, right? Furthermore, this sort of a language you will not use in an informal letter, right? Furthermore, I appreciated the post-interview administrative process, which was well-planned and informative. I have received my offer letter detailing the terms and conditions of the employment and other benefits. I look forward to starting, right? I look forward to very, very formal phrases, very apt for the formal letter. I look forward to starting employment on 1st June and consider this an exciting opportunity to work with the team. I can be reached, blah, blah, blah. If you require any further details from my end, thank you once again. Yours sincerely, space for your signature, and then you put your name in brackets, right? So this will pretty much be the format for formal letter. Yeah? Any questions? Most of your questions will get answered while we go through the motions of looking at the sample. In case you have any further questions, please feel free to ask. Yeah, you may have missed out on a couple of pointers that I had given initially. So if you joined late, I would request you to go back and watch the video at a later point of time. Yeah. So far clear with respect to formal. And like I said, did you notice that the language that you used, right, is slightly appropriate for formal context, right? So keep that in mind. Now we're going to move on to an informal format. What's the informal? Informal is something that most of us are comfortable with, right? If you had a choice, if you had an option to choose between formal and informal, well, I have two schools of thought, because a couple of them have come back and said, formal letter, at least there is some sort of a structure. It's easier for me to quickly write that. Some of them say, no, I feel easier writing an informal letter, so I don't have to worry about the language, right? No, you don't have to write signature, Shubham. You sign there. This is for you to know that this is the space where you sign. So I've put signature. You need to sign there, whatever your signature, right? It really doesn't matter, Venu. All are accepted in a formal context. Yours sincerely, yours truly, yours faithfully. But stick to yours sincerely, right? Very standard sign off or a closing thing. So stick to yours sincerely. Yeah? Should we move forward and quickly take a look at the informal format? Let's do that. Letter writing, usually essay writing, at least they give you a word count, 150, 250, whatever it is. Essay writing, stick to 100 to 120 words. I don't think it should go beyond that. You're writing, it's a letter, it's not an essay. So keep that in mind. A letter should ideally have anywhere between 75 to 120 max. I don't think it should go beyond that. It doesn't serve the purpose. So if you have a tendency to write at length, that's when you need to proofread. You need time to proofread and go back, look at the letter. You might have written sentences that are repetitive in meaning, right? We want to say the same thing. So things like, I want to tell you that, this. I can avoid that I want to tell you that in that sentence, right? It's an unnecessary phrase, lengthening the sentence. So anything that is not required, is very repetitive in meaning, which I can eliminate, which keeps my letter short and sweet, you need to do that, which means you need to allot time to proofread. Yeah? So let's quickly look at the informal letter format. Are you guys ready? So if you look at the informal letter format, again you have the form address, which is your name and address. And if you notice, the to address is missing because it's going to come at the outside, right? When you when you're posting it, that's when you need the to address. So in this case, you don't need that, and then you have the date, and then you have the greeting, which is hi, dear mom, whoever you're writing to. And we all know the difference, right? Mostly the formal letters are written to bosses, companies, where you're writing to the company. That's what I mentioned. So usually it's to do with, to the editor, to the bank manager. Those sort of receivers would fall under the formal category. Your informal category would be your family, your relatives, your friends. Yeah, you know the difference. So let's continue. So then you have the content, and then you have the complimentary close sign-off, right? And for your informal sign-off, if you notice, it can be anything ranging from regards, warm regards, best wishes, love, right? All of that can go. And then, of course, you write your name in brackets, and then you leave space for. So basically, this is where you sign off, okay? So the place where the signature is, you sign off, okay? Just to be specific and clear, because a lot of you, yeah? No, you don't, Ashwini, you don't have to. Good question. You don't have to write from and to. You can just start off. If you looked at the sample that we looked at for the formal letter, I didn't say from and to, right? I just started off with my name and then the receiver's name, yeah? That's just the format, but if you look at the actual sample, you'll see the difference. So let's move on. Let's look at a sample for an informal letter. So so what's the letter? You're writing a letter to a sibling explaining benefits of saving money for the future. Okay? So dear XYZ, okay, your sibling, whoever it is. So you go, how are you? Hope you're in good health and wealth. Now that you're independent, I wanted to share with you some benefits of saving money for the future. So if you happen to notice, whether it's informal or formal, always the intent or the purpose for which the letter is being written has to come in the introduction. Right? Why am I writing this letter? So the reader automatically knows, okay, this is what I can expect throughout the letter, right? And then however you want to put it, right? Because he's looking at, the title says you're explaining benefits of saving money, and if you want the reader to follow you, you can always follow, feed in sequence hint words like first, next, finally. Otherwise also it doesn't matter. You can just write as you would normally write, right? So first, just moving ahead, reading the content. First, control your expenses. Learn to save first and spend afterwards. Afterwards, it improves your financial status. Next, start investing wisely. Wisely save at least 15 to 20% of what you get. You will be prepared for unforeseen expenses and emergencies. Finally, change your lifestyle. Eat less outside. Look out for discounts or incentive programs. Don't buy expensive things on impulse. Rather, buy things online in bulk. If you notice the language here, did you notice the language here? It's more like giving orders. You know what? I'm experienced. I know what I'm saying. So you follow or you listen to what I'm saying, right? So you have that leeway because it's your sibling that you're writing to. So if you look at the language in the informal letter, it's more like do this, do that. Yeah, I'm telling you, it's more like letting the person know, out of experience, I know what I'm talking about. So listen to me, right? So depending on the formal or informal, the language automatically changes, right? For a formal letter, you would say, I would like to advise you that. But in an informal letter, you say, do this, do that, right? You see the difference in the language? Go back. So, control your expenses. Start investing wisely. Change your lifestyle. Do this, do that. Don't buy expensive things. Save at least. Learn to save first, right? And again, retrain. Do this and trust me, you will be less stressful and financially independent. Yeah? And then, if you also notice, look at the last phrase. It says, I'd love to hear from you on your progress, right? Very informal, very casual, because it's your sibling at the end of the day. And if you know, did you notice this contraction? Right? Basically, this is I would. So you would never use contractions in a formal letter. You would never use contractions in a formal letter, right? That's another thing that you need to keep in mind. So you may have used it because we're so used to short forms, right, nowadays, because we're so busy chatting on WhatsApp or whatever it is. We're so used to short forms, but and we don't write extensively, right? I don't think most of us write daily, or we are in a situation where we have to write formal contexts on a regular basis. So having said that, this is something that you need to watch out when you're proofreading the context later, right? And then you finish off, lots of love, ABC. And you take the liberty in informal context. You know, you would say, I want you to do this, I want you to think about it, things like that. But in a formal context, it's more to do with could you, would you, right? Choice of words. So so far we have an idea of what the format is when it comes to informal and formal. We've looked at a sample as well, right? It's also important for us to adhere to certain guidelines when it comes to letter writing. When I say guidelines, these are some things that I need to keep at the back of my mind when I'm writing a letter. So let's quickly look at some guidelines, and then I'll share with you some sample topics. So let's see. So alignment, just stick to all content towards the left, right? Some of them come back and say, you know, you can write the date on the right hand side, or a particular address to address on the right hand side. It doesn't matter. You're not going to lose any points if you do that, but just stick to the left. Keep everything to the left. It's easier to remember, it's easier to follow. Like I said, you're not required to mention your name. ABC, XYZ should suffice. Avoid comma at the end of each line in the address. We discussed this while we were looking at the format. Have clear subject lines. Use question as a guideline, right? So for example, in the first, remember, the first formal letter that we saw, let's go back. So it said here, subject, job offer acceptance for the post of assistant manager. So basically I've used the question itself, right? Job offer acceptance for the post of assistant manager. It's clear, it's to the point, it covers all the essential details, right? So don't break your head about, you know, what to write for the subject. Just use the question as your guideline. So have clear subject lines if you are planning to feed that in. Remember I said it's optional, you don't have to. The introduction should cover what you want to convey to the reader. Remember we spoke about the intent or purpose. This needs to be covered. Have short paragraphs with 4 to 5 lines maximum, with 2 to 3 or 3 to 4 paragraphs. Right, so don't make it chunky, your letter writing. Remember it's not an essay. A paragraph can also contain one sentence for emphasis or to create effect. Yeah, I mean if you go back, right, I can be reached via phone or email. So this is an important detail that you're letting the person know. It's only one line, which is still fine. Right, I have received my offer letter detailing the terms. It's just one line, but it's important because you want the reader to focus on that. Right, so anything that you want the reader to focus on, you can even stick to one sentence for emphasis. Stick to the word count. Like I said, if they don't provide a word count for you, just stick to 75 to 120 words max. Body content needs to be logical. Like we said, there should be a logical flow to your content, right? Introduction, then what are the essentials that need to be covered depending on the letter, the question. And then you appropriately close, right? If there's any follow-up action that you need to take from your end depending on the topic, feed that in. If you are expecting any details further from the receiver, then feed that in. So make sure your close has the essential details, right? Action, need. It addresses the need, meaning any follow-up action. Then you focus on the format. Like I said, depending on formal, informal letter. Why is this important? The next one, maintain an appropriate tone. Tone comes with the words that you use. Avoid contractions in formal letter. Use would, could in formal letters. Unlike informal where, you know, want. I want this. I want you to do this. Do this or do that in informal. We saw that, right? So choice of words, contractions, the tone that you, the tone basically is nothing but the choice of words. Yeah? Any questions before we probably look at the last segment, which are just sample topics? So Ashwini says we can use this ending line with any kind of letter, or we have any other words to end our letter, ma'am, like faithfully, etc. Like I said, you can say yours truly, yours faithfully. It's just my suggestion that you stick to yours sincerely. There's nothing wrong in saying faithfully or truly. I'll tell you what, Krishna, rather than, I don't know, there could be books out there in the market that you can fall back on for practice, but I would advise you to, you know, just pick up random topics. I'll be sharing a couple of topics. Just look at some random topics and do a rough outline of how you would address that specific topic, right? What would you say? What would be the introduction? What would be? It's a very simple, straightforward format. Nothing that you need to break your head about, right? You just need to make sure you cover all the essential details. No, like I said, avoid anything original, whether it's your name or your address. Just give some random address, right? I would advise against giving your original address or name or number. It's the same thing, Satish. So that's a good example that you've put there. Maybe a lot of people can use that as a practice, to practice, right? No, Shubham, basically, you know, it is for people to follow, this is the person. So you have yours sincerely and then you have gap. You sign there and just beneath the sign, you're just writing your full name in caps. Usually, you know, that's asked in terms of a format, but it's okay if you don't do that as well. It's not mandatory. You don't have to, Shai, that's what I said initially. Yeah, Ashish, if you attend tomorrow's session at 5, I will be covering essay writing. It doesn't matter, Rahul. Irrespective of the letter that you choose, it's the same marks. Whatever marks is allotted for letter is what you'll get. Doesn't mean if you pick formal letter, you'll get more marks, and if you pick informal letter, you'll get less marks. That's not how it works. So Raju, I'm guessing you came late. I've already shared 2 samples in this video. I would advise you to go back and watch this video again. See, for the most part, Ashwini, what you will be evaluated on is the overall look and feel of the letter, right? Whether it's formal or informal, have you adhered to the structure or the format of the letter in general. 2 is the language that you've used, is it appropriate or not? So a little bit of grammar, choice of words, right? And the content itself, is it specifically covering all the essentials that are required to be covered for a topic like this? If this is the question, right? Have you covered all the essential topics? I mean, essential things that need to go under this question. So predominantly it's the format, it's the content, right? And it's language, which is grammar, spelling, all of that. Yeah. When I say content, it also covers your logical flow. Are you making sense when the reader is reading your letter? Does it have a logical flow to it? Are the ideas flowing naturally one after the other, right? Or is it all over the place? So some sort of a coherence in your writing. Yeah. So yes, Chakri, tomorrow 5 o'clock, be there. I guess you could do that, Niharika. Yeah. So I'll share with you some topics. Yeah. So you can take a look at these are just some samples. Let me share them. So letter to bank manager requesting to extend the joining period as you have received the offer letter for the bank job. Write a letter to the bank manager for the closing of your savings account. Write a letter to your sibling mentioning how to prepare for bank exams. Write a letter to your parents informing them about your selection in a bank. Letter to the editor of a newspaper on cybercrimes taking place in your city and suggesting measures to curb this menace. Then you're writing a letter to the bank manager seeking time for payment of EMI. Write a letter to credit officer asking for a credit card. So these are just some sample letters for you. You can go back and practice, right? You can always pause here while you replay this video, and you can probably practice on these. The idea is for you to get a free flow in terms of writing itself, right? Whether it's a letter or a essay. You should be able to write logically and cover all, smart Abhijit, cover all the essentials, yeah? So, not to worry, all the very best. Stay with me. Tomorrow we'll look at essay writing and we'll cover some more essentials that are required for essay writing, yeah? So Ashwini is like going a step forward and like we need the answers as well. For that you join TalentSprint. So if you happen to like this video, please give it a thumbs up sign and do subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet. You know that we have a whole load of videos screened just for you to help you in your preparation. So keep practicing, stay focused, and I will catch you guys tomorrow at 5. Take care. Bye-bye.